Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Founders. Today's conversation feels like one of those cozy curl up on the couch kind of chats, the kind where we talk about the real journey behind the polished brands. So I'm so excited to welcome Emily Major Gerard, founder of Seven a Sunday, a content and social media agency rooted in connection and intentional storytelling, and the Social BTS, a wedding day content experience designed to capture candid, in the moment memories while allowing couples to stay fully present during their day. So Emily has built not just one, but two brands centered around human connection. One helping businesses show up authentically online, and the other preserving some of life's most meaningful days and moments in a way that feels effortless and real. So what I admire most is the through line presence, attention, and the creating of work that feels as good as it looks on the outside. So today we're not just going to be talking about what she built. We're going to be talking about how she built it, the shifts, the risks, the leadership evolution, the quiet moments that shaped both businesses. So grab your cup of coffee or tea and let's dive into it. So welcome, Emily. I'm truly honored to have you here today for your very first podcast conversation. Before we dive into your journey as a founder, I'd love to start somewhere more personal. So how are you really feeling today?
Thank you for having me. Today, I feel like, especially coming off of this morning, is a little bit chaotic. And I feel like it's a good reminder why I need to get out of the work as a founder, because I was rushing to get some content done to make sure I was ready for this. So I would say chaos today. That's not usually the case, but that's currently how I'm feeling. I just ran up 2 flights of stairs and came back, so I forgot something before this. So, yeah.
Sometimes there's just days like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're juggling a lot and we're constantly putting ourselves out of our comfort zone and doing things that we've never done before. And, that's absolutely normal. So if we were actually sitting on a couch together, because we are virtual, I'd love to be in person with you. But if we were sitting on a couch having a cup of tea or coffee together, share what season of life does this business era that you're in currently feel like?
It feels tough. I was actually just saying to a friend yesterday that this past year has been the hardest it's been in my business, and not so much that things are difficult and I'm unsure of how to do it, which is true to a certain extent, but it's more of trying to figure out how to navigate things. We're definitely in a period of growth, and switching from freelancer to agency owner and really stepping into leadership, I find is tricky because as an empath, I want to make sure people around me are enjoying working with me and having a good time, and I think that's really important to me. So period of growth and setting the foundations for the business to scale a little bit more, building a team and making sure that everyone, clients and team members, are enjoying themselves and happy with what we're doing.
I mean, that's no small undertaking, right? That is when you really take a different perspective of it outside of yourself. That is a massive task that you are undertaking. So it can feel challenging. It can feel really tough because like many of us weren't trained either in corporate, in our other careers, whatever we were doing previous to this, to do these types of things. So we're basically learning as we go, and that's tough, right?
Yeah, and actually my first hire was a friend, so there's also this other level of I'm making sure she has money to put food on her table. She just bought a house. It's all so exciting, but there's this extra level of pressure, which in a weird way I love it because it motivates me, but I just feel like it's more personal, which is can be tricky. I tend to think about things before I go to bed and while I sleep. And when I wake up, it's weird.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
That's another level of responsibility.
Yeah.
You're not just having to make sure that you're okay financially, you're now having to make sure that other people are as well. And that adds to the toll, right?
Yeah.
So before Seven a Sunday, before the social BTS, was there a moment professionally, personally that shifted something within you that, the kind of moment that made you realize that you wanted to go down this path versus going somewhere in corporate and working for someone else? You wanted to build something for yourself, whatever that would be.
I feel like there's a few moments that I look back now and they're, like hints, I would say, that this was always what I wanted to do. I remember my parents always trying to make me have a job, but nothing felt fun to me. You look back at my jobs, they were always weird and quirky kind of things I was doing. Um, and then I always had a side project. If anyone who listens to this knows me from my burger era, I had a burger tour, a little social media project, which was really fun. I was always the girl who had notes of business ideas. I would scribble down what I wanted in my life was freedom to travel, doing something creative, working for myself, which I never knew what it would be at the time, but there was always things happening that just kind of made it obvious to me later that this was always what I was meant to do, is working for myself in some capacity. And I'm just happy that it finally happened and I figured out what it was. It took a little bit, but I had a corporate job or job in tech before and it wasn't for me. Even just traveling to an office across the city was enough for me to know that it wasn't the right fit. Um, but yeah, just I think having the freedom to be creative and not follow someone else's kind of timeline. I can remember before having to ask my boss for time off to have a doctor's appointment, and he asked what it was for and to essentially prove that that's what was happening. And I just was, that was actually my first full time job after university and college. And I was like, you know what, maybe this is not for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't know about you, but like when I grew up, I wasn't really like being an entrepreneur wasn't really a thing that people talked about. I knew a lot of people that had their own businesses, but they didn't really talk about this path as being like an alternate option to corporate. It was just like a thing. And I remember starting like all these businesses on the side of working, whether it was like A&W or La Senza or like, all these places growing up and always having something on the side that I was doing, but had no idea that I was like doing something like being a business owner essentially.
Yeah.
And then finally it clicked in like my late, no, my early 30s.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with how it went when it started for me. I think um, I had been laid off from a job that I was meant to be my dream job, and I hated it. No one in the office even knew how miserable I was. Um, and it was kind of like a now or never moment after that, where I was like, this is my chance. Because I feel like when you're in a 9 to 5, it is hard to quit. But, and then even growing up, I remember my childhood friend and I would charge his parents and family to go into the basement to watch a movie. We had a movie theater business, and like there was always business ideas flowing. And I do think it's hard. Like a lot of the business ideas that I had were shot down by a lot of people. I had mentors or people who I looked up to who had asked questions, or they would set me up with someone who I could ask questions who knew better. And they were like, well, it'd just be easier to just buy it or from an existing brand, or that's not going to work. The market is too saturated, blah, blah, blah. So always getting shot down. Also, like when we're young, we don't have these ideas presented to us that we can do these things. And then to have people we look up to just be like, well, um, it's easier to just buy it. But now when I think about it, all these people were in like a 9 to 5 who, you know, it's the math is mathing now too.
It makes sense later, right?
Yeah, but
Did
anyways.
you have people in your life in the earlier stages that were entrepreneurs and that, talked about, your alternate options and stuff like that?
My fiance is actually a photographer, and he's been, I believe this is his 10th year working for himself. So that was huge. Like he'll say I asked him a million and one questions, but I know he secretly loves to help me. But I think having him, and then I immediately tried to find other people in the creative industry who I could connect with, which was really helpful. But other than that, I wouldn't say that there's many people around me who have their own business. My brother-in-law has always had a few businesses, and but yeah, I wouldn't say I had many people around me who showed me what was possible. I really had to trust my own gut and just hope for the best.
Yeah, hopefully kids these days have more exposure to the different paths that are available to them because I definitely didn't have that either when I was growing up. Um, but let's talk about the brands itself. So the first business was Seven to Sunday, right? And I'd love to know what was happening in that period when you decided to start another one. Like, what prompted you to then start the social BTS? And what later shifted in you or the market that made creating this second business? Because running one is one thing, but adding another one that is very different is another thing. That made it feel like it's necessary. You had to take action.
Yeah, there's a few key things that stand out to me. So, um, in 2023, I was asked to, I don't even know how this came to be, but I was asked to do wedding content creation. And I said, it's not really any different than like an e-commerce brand, like UGC content, stuff like that. I'm just kind of capturing what's happening in front of me. And she was blown away. She loved it so much. So as I kept getting asked, I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll just create a separate Instagram account because I didn't want to post it on my social media or it didn't really fit the audience for Seven to Sunday. And then I would get more leads from that. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just make like a separate name for it or like do a quick logo. So I've been slowly investing more into it. And I think in the wedding industry, it's a huge and growing service now. Um, so that was one thing. And another thing I realized is that it's so much easier to scale. So in terms of my capacity, like I feel I've always been running thin already before that. But I have a team that I'm building with associate content creators who can help me out with like on wedding days. So I will take on a limited amount, but I have a team that helps me. And then I have a creator who's a friend out west. So we can kind of cover Vancouver and Ontario, like Ottawa specifically. And I trust these creators so much. They're very talented and they all have kind of a similar vibe to them and how they are with people. So I feel like we're building a strong brand. And then earlier this year, I finally started doing I have a new website and branding coming for that. It's the website's in development right now. So just I keep kind of trusting my gut with that and seeing the interest and from clients, and it's really been working out. So I feel like a lot of being a founder sometimes is just trusting your gut and just going off of the vibes. So that's what I'm doing. But that's now how I have two, and I can see how it is a lot easier. We have set packages, whereas with Seven to Sunday, a lot of them are more custom. So it's a lot easier I can see how it can grow in a different way than Seven to Sunday.
Interesting. It's so important to just stay open to like what nudges you're getting and what your clients or your community is telling you because you never know what path is actually going to lead you down. Right? Like
Yeah.
you probably never thought that you'd have this other business that does the behind the scenes and like video coverage of weddings, which is so beautiful. But you never know where you're going to end up, which is so fun when you think about it.
Yeah. And I think one thing I was just thinking about is that I feel like once you finally take that first step to do something on your own, like I still have so many business ideas because I feel like now I can actually see how some of these can really come to life and you've already trusted yourself to do it once before. So it feels like less pressure. Um, so I do need to like chill it on on some of these ideas that I have because you truly can't do it all. But I think it's so much fun. I love the details of things and making sure the brand experience is good for everyone, and just the I feel like the details that a lot of people don't pay attention to is what I love, which is kind of what I was saying before when we first started, how this season of business has been like really hard, but it's like fun for me at the same time. But yeah, so I love what I do essentially, I guess is what that all boils down to.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So when you start a business, you probably can relate to this. Generally, you go into it with a skill set or a passion, right? And it becomes a very big passion project that evolves and grows as the business does. When did it stop being a creative passion project for you and start feeling like, a real business that is a legit thing with real responsibility tied to it as a founder?
Like right away. For me, when I was starting off and it was like a now or never kind of situation, I had doubled my monthly income in the first month from what I was making for my salary. I think my first month, I think I doubled it and more. It was a 10K month, my first month ever, which to me, I was like, whoa,
That's a lot.
that's kind of crazy. Yeah. And it was so validating because coming from a place where I really doubted myself, and I had such a good support system around me. My parents were amazing too. I was living at home at the time, and because this is also actually this was 2021, so kind of still like COVID time. So it was a weird time in general. Um, but and then also people not really taking me seriously before, so it was kind of like you need to show up as a business owner and really figure this out. So it paid off. So pretty much right from the get, I was like, "Okay, this is happening, and I need to take it like very seriously."
And you went like full throttle on it. You didn't have like a backup plan or
But
a stable job kind of supporting you as you tested the waters to see if this was going to work. You just went full throttle into it.
just dove in, and it was. I'm so happy that I did.
How, and I'm sure a lot of people tuning in here are going to want to know this. How did you get 10K in the first month? Like, what did you do in that initial period that set you up to be able to have that kind of success right at the onset?
I think I think your support system and something like this is huge. Like what I was saying, I was at home. I felt like while I did put pressure on myself, knowing people around me trusted that I would figure it out and would support me. Um, like obviously my parents weren't wanting me there, I'm sure, for, oh, is she going to figure this business out, or like what's going to happen here, but I think they trusted in me. So that, and then because it was really just, I had to dive into it, I actually got a lot of clients off of Twitter. So I was always in every conversation that I could. I worked past contacts. I had like one or two side clients at the time, but it was like peanuts. I think my social media management package at the time was $500, which is yeah, insane. So that relationship had ended, and I just moved forward kind of fresh. I showed up online. I remember posting on social media that this is what I was doing at the time, and so it got some attention. And I think one thing that I don't have it all figured out, but when newer social media managers or creators come to me with questions, but it's questions that they haven't tried to figure out themselves, like you need to do that. You need to like have the drive to figure it out. You need to hustle. I don't love hustle culture in the sense that like you need to have boundaries and you need to enjoy your life, but I think in the early stages, you need to hustle. You need to put it all out there and try everything. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to people and cold DM if that's what you feel like you need to do. Like, the more conversations you have, essentially, it's a conversation game. Like, the more conversations you have, the more of a chance something will come to fruition for you.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. I mean, definitely not the hustle culture. I think there's, just like you said, you need to have a little bit of harmony between work and life, and obviously don't burn yourself out in the process, because it takes like way more time to come out of burnout than it took for you to get into it.
Yes.
But there is something to say about trying every avenue and putting yourself out there and really just working for it. So I applaud that quite a bit. What did you learn about your capacity levels when you chose to run two distinct offerings?
Um, so I will say one thing I've learned in general, not so much about these two distinct offerings, but in general for my capacity, was it last year or the year before that? Basically, before my first hire, which was July 1st last year, I was getting sick nonstop, like all the time. I could not figure out what it was. Anytime I would travel, anytime I would have something important, like sick, sick, sick all the time. And that was, to me, was such an eye opener for my capacity, and that I was running myself thin. And just, I think you get to a point as a freelancer where you have your max clients and max cap how much you can make on your own. And so I was doing everything in the business on my own, getting sick all the time. I wasn't sleeping properly. So I think figuring that out, and that I needed a team member, now having the two offerings is just so much easier to envision how it can scale, because I have time to be a founder and to lead a business and two businesses and to lead a team. So like what I was saying earlier about being in that foundation period of like growth, I I can see how it makes more sense now that I've freed up some time. And then going back to what I was saying this morning of being chaotic a little bit, is where this is where there are times where I still need to step out of the work and be a founder and a business owner versus me in it, because now I'm going from being in the content to, working on team, contracts or SOPs, like answering emails, trying to figure out how to grow my business. There's just like so many things that you flip flop around, and it's hard to focus on one thing when you're always needing to focus on a million things. Obviously, that you know what I mean. Like it's
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
I mean, when you go from being a solopreneur to building out a team, there's a lot of adjustments in there that you need to pay attention to, because you do need to shift your focus. You can't be in the day to day anymore. You need to, manage the team. You need to be more of the strategic lens, and like, you know, focus on the bigger picture of what you're building for both businesses. And it's hard to get out of the weeds. It's hard to
Yes.
not get sucked back into certain scenarios, because this is something that you built with your own two hands, your blood, sweat, and your tears, and you know how it all runs and how it should run. And it's really hard to kind of like, no, I need to just trust and let my team handle this. And if something does escalate, we'll deal with it, and we'll put in SOPs or processes. We'll deal with whatever that scenario is, but I need to stay focused here.
Yeah, trust is a big one, because I hold myself to such a high standard, and details matter, and I know that clients appreciate that with us. So that's been such a huge thing, is stepping into more of a leadership role, is trusting my team, and um, having it be, there's like little things where I'm like, I take a second and be like, is this me being crazy? Or is this like something I could have taught before? Or is this okay? And I have to think, well, it doesn't really change the performance of the video that we're creating, but it is still kind of like my standard and the standard that I want to set for Seven to Sunday clients. So, and only as of recently, I finalized a few SOPs, which like has felt like such a weight off my shoulders, because now it's finally out of my brain and somewhere that my team can see, which will obviously help in the future even more and my next hire. So, and there's like even those little things where I'm like, what's an SOP? Like, I never had that in any of my jobs. I cannot remember ever having an SOP handed to me. Um, so I don't even know if I wrote it properly, but it makes sense like to me. And And there's so many things where I feel like if you're going to have your own business, you just need to fly by the seat of your pants, or whatever that expression is. You just need to kind of figure it out. And yeah, if it isn't right the first time, you'll figure it out. You'll keep going and improving. But yeah, lots of learning as of late.
There's that fine line that I found with founders where, you know, there's a standard that the business upholds in the work that we deliver, but nobody's ever going to do it exactly like you. Everybody has their own little perspectives, their own, aesthetic to a certain degree, obviously within the parameters of your guidelines within the business and within the roles that they have. But you got to get to a point where you're like, this is good. It's not exactly the way that I would have done it, but it still meets the standards that we uphold as a company. And I need to let it go. I can't be in every little thing and correcting it. And you know what I mean? Like there's that line that a lot of founders struggle with. How has that been for you?
It's definitely been tough. Like everyone who knows me knows that one of my best friends says I'm a Libra with Virgo energy because I need to be in control of everything. Um, Even my friends like planning my wedding right now, they're like, we don't even need to, like, we know you're not going to ask for our help. Like, it's fine because I'm just so, I love to be in control of things. And that is, in a way, I love that about myself. But I do know that this has helped me work on it because my team is amazing. And like, it's taken a while to get to this point. Like, hiring Nadia, my first hire, was such an amazing moment because she had worked with me for a while, just like on the side. And it made so much sense. And I've worked with so many other contractors. And then this is where I'm like, does no one want to work anymore? It is insane to me, people's work ethic these days. Um, and I was like, I'm never going to grow my business. I'm never going to have the support that I need. I can't trust anyone. And this also helped. It didn't help me let go of that control because when I would trust a contractor to get something done, they wouldn't. So it would be me all weekend or all night trying to pick up the slack because there's no way that I'm not going to meet that deadline if I can avoid it or have it done up to my standard. And so this has been one of the hardest things, actually, truly, probably one of the hardest things since starting is hiring. It is insane to me that I feel like no one cares anymore about their work. Um, but I'm finally in a groove now, having Nadia, and then we have someone else who's been helping us who I'd love to bring onto the team full time, and she's amazing. She is the most organized person I've ever met. And I've always heard like when you're growing your team, having people who are better than you at things is like what you need. So I'm like, this is making sense now. Um, so I'm just like very excited to see like full picture how Seven to Sunday will grow as well. So it's like a growth time and a very exciting time as well.
I love that. I was just writing a post about what you just said.
Yeah.
As you grow the business, you are the sharpest mind, in
Yeah.
your business. You know it all. And if not, you're going to figure it out because you're scrappy. But then there comes a point where you need to hire the experts, people that are better than you in certain areas. And, that's a challenge of no longer being the one with all the answers and now being the one where, they're questioning things with you and how you set things up. And they're, advising you that we need to adjust things because this is just not the way that things need to be. And like it's a hard pivot going from being the one with all the answers, the one that does it all, to now having people come in that have the expertise that you don't have and letting that control go.
Yes. It's well, check back in with me in a few months and see if I've improved on any of this control stuff. But I feel like it should be good. Like at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to have fun with their work. It's all for a good reason. So if someone else can help improve my life, like I'm here for it because for so long I've been lonely working on this by myself and um, it's fun to have like a team around you.
Absolutely, it makes
Mhm.
things so different, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to do great. I mean, the whole journey of being an entrepreneur is like the biggest self development journey you'll ever be on. So, it's all part of the process. But let's talk about something that maybe surprised you about becoming a founder that nobody ever warned you would come about.
This one I find is hard, because there's so many different things. I would say like there's nothing that has completely shocked me other than like one thing I've noticed is just no one really knows what they're doing. um, and then people's work ethic. Like I kind of figured going into this, everyone would that I'd be working with clients would be, um, you know, I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing here, is like a very intimidating kind of place to get into for work, but everyone's just figuring it out. And then on the flip side, like what I was saying, hiring contractors, to me, the amount of little vent sessions I've gone on in this house here. So my partner is like crazy because he hasn't really ever had a job working with like employees and a team and stuff. So I feel like it's always just been him. Um, but I think, yeah, having people that I trust with me has been the biggest thing that I surprisingly has been the hardest, and the thing that has shocked me the most. People's work ethic. I've never not been someone who would take something seriously. I feel so, knowing that people are out there just not meeting deadlines and stuff is crazy to me, and I just can't really wrap my brain around it. But aside from that, like there hasn't really been a whole lot that I have been shocked that no one warned me about. Um, I think because my mindset maybe has always been like I really want to work for myself and do something like this, is that I've kind of um, maybe prepared myself for that. I guess one thing is that it can be a little bit lonely, especially in your personal life, when friends or family members don't really understand what it's like to work for themselves, because maybe they have a 9 to 5, they just kind of show up and clock out, where like I'll never for the rest of my life ever not be able to turn my brain off.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Never
Yeah.
turns off. As
Yeah.
much as you try, you'll have moments throughout the day maybe that you didn't think about work, but overall, no.
Yeah. No. I It takes a lot for me to truly be like removed and have my brain thinking of something else. Even when I try to be offline, I'll see something like on a walk, or or I don't know. I was going to say reading, but I don't really read. But like something that inspires me, and I'm like, "Oh, like maybe that would be really cool for this." And then I'll have to like um send a text or write it down or something. So, and I think that's also just the fun thing about working for yourself too. Like you can do things to spark creativity, and it's just like always around you, which I like, especially working for myself, being able to travel and have that freedom. Like I have never been so inspired than going on a trip and coming back and being like, wow, look at all these things that like all these ideas that I had. So
I love that.
yeah.
Now, what's a belief that you had about leadership early on that you simply just don't believe anymore now that you have a team and you've been in it for a little bit?
Yeah. I think that I really want to be a cool, chill boss. Um, and I never really knew how to approach that. And I was like, well, I'll just kind of let people do their job and whatever. But now that, doing the SOPs and all this, like there needs to be structure. Um, I want people to do well in their roles. And I'm realizing now that like for them to do well, there still needs to be guidelines and structures and systems in place for them to thrive. Otherwise, they don't really know, like as much as I can say like go rogue, do what you want. There needs to be some parameters. Um, I think like that's something that I'm learning now because I can only assume that people maybe know how to do things, but there's even things that I realize that I don't even know how to do still in social media that I feel like I should know. So how I can't like assume one or the other. But I think like a good leader sets someone up for success in the right way, and yeah, and listens if what we were saying, if someone else is, I bring in team members who are better than me at certain things, like being able and open to listen to what they're saying. I feel like I went a little off of your question here, but that's kind of okay. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, where um, I want it to be fun and relaxed, but there still needs to be structure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the structure allows you to be laid back and chill as a boss. You know what I mean? Like it gives you that space to be able to do so because you're no longer micromanaging. You have the systems, you have the processes in place so that people can take ownership over their roles and execute it to the level and the standard that you require. And you don't have to be in it. You know what I mean? You can now take a different position within your team and focus on, other things that will make the team, the culture, the company even better. So it goes hand in hand. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't realize that that's what's required as you build a team.
Yeah. And again, like what I said, as in a few months, like I'll probably have a completely different answer to that just because I feel like every day I'm learning something new. Um, and I'm just thinking of like plans for later this year, how I want to, run the team, and even just little things like happy hour the last day of the Friday. I'm saying about the details, and like there's so many little things that I want to try and do to make work fun. Because at the end of the day, if work is not fun, then what are we doing? It should be fun. It's like takes up so much of our life.
Culture
But
is so important within a team.
yeah, and I feel like I didn't really have that before. I've made like one work friend my whole life. Like I never really had, I've had three full-time jobs, I guess, so maybe that's partly why, but I just feel like I've never had that dream team that I've been part of. And so I want to try and create that for Seven to Sunday.
I love that. That's a great goal, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, when did you know that it was time to bring on a team member? So you were running this by yourself. Obviously, you had success right out of the gate, which is fantastic. But what was that moment where you're like, I need to bring somebody on? What made you jump?
Yeah, so there's a few things. One, getting sick all the time was a huge red flag. So this is my fifth year in business. So last year, year four, honestly, year three, even, I probably talked about hiring my first full time team member for like 10 months. But it's terrifying. It's like a whole other world. But in like right before, I guess, yeah, last summer, I incorporated, set up business banking, got an accountant. I feel like I just got really serious about bringing Seven to Sunday to the next level, got an employee contract, sent out the offer. I kind of talked to someone to be like, do you feel like I can afford this based off of what I'm making now? And they gave me the confidence that I could. So sent out the offer. And since then, I have stopped getting sick, which is amazing. Knock on wood. But I feel like how my body was reacting was a huge sign to me that I needed help. But then on top of that, it's when I was looking at how many hours I was putting into client work and just running the business was a lot. I was working all the time. And yeah, I loved it and it was fun, but it just wasn't sustainable. And when I think about if I wanted to make more money, there's no way that I could. There's only so many clients that you can take on at once. And yeah, you could. I've heard of some people taking on like 10 social media management clients on their own, but I promise you, the quality of their work is not tip top because there's no way that you can manage an account and have that many on the go and do it all yourself. Within 7 to Sunday, um, our team members take on 2 to 3 clients max, maybe like 2 social media management and like 1 content. It's impossible to do it all. Um, and I was actually just I was talking to my mom this morning, and she asked if I have any regrets doing the hire, and like, there's no way. It was probably one of the best things that I've done in my business, and yeah, I'm just it makes me really excited of like what else we could do.
Amazing. Now, have you ever created something? So let's talk about the content creation or anything like that that you were really proud of, but unfortunately it flopped or it didn't perform as well as you thought it should, or maybe the client didn't see the vision or something like that. How did you handle that emotionally, but also strategically?
I don't. Nothing stands out to me as a total flop. Um, and that's not to say I don't make mistakes. I think in social media, there's so much A/B testing like all the time that it's just kind of something that I'm used to. And since day one, I've known that to be the case. I feel like our systems are set up well. So our content creation clients only, we never create the content until concepts have been approved ahead of time. And we have a brief and we're on the same page. And they need to approve the concepts before we move to the next phase. So we're already aligned in that way. And then for our social media management clients, we already know what's coming up for them in the month. We already know their style. We always do custom strategies for every client. So there's always this conversation and this approval process before, which kind of just eliminates back and forth in terms of maybe like a video that went out that flopped. That happens definitely all the time. It's a little, I wouldn't say, I mean, it's always going to be disappointing, but internally we would chat kind of like, I thought that one would have done better. What can we do next time? Maybe it was this or that. Maybe we'll try as a trial reel with different text this time. So I think you can't get down too much. Like otherwise it's a very slippery slope. Even just losing a client, like it happens, you really think it's personal. It always feels personal. Um, and even recently, I set up a bit more of like a feedback process when we offboard a client, which is something I should have done so long ago. But like sending that link to get feedback is terrifying because well, they're gonna write they hate me and they don't want to work with me anymore. It's like you automatically think the worst. I feel, but you can't think that way. Um, so you really just need to be like, oh, that's too bad, but this will open up the space for a new dream client. It's kind of how you have to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what is your decision making process when you're unsure about something? When, you know, you're you have this idea, but you're not fully certain that's the way that you should go, or, you don't have all the data to back it up. Do you go inward? Do you like trust your intuition? Do you ask for input? Do you move fast and you just take action? Like, what exactly do you do? Or maybe you just completely like avoid it and procrastinate and
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely done that before. There's a few layers to it, like larger scale decisions. Um, I will talk about it nonstop, like to myself or to my partner, and just like I think I just need a soundboard a lot of the time, and just to speak it into existence, kind of like what I was saying before my first hire. I talked about it for like 10 months. I just feel like speaking about it, it can sometimes bring other ideas in that you maybe hadn't thought of. So for larger decisions, that for anything smaller, it's kind of like, I guess an example would be recently for a client, we shifted their strategy to be more content creator focused versus like it's coming from a brand. And it was something that we were like, well, we don't know kind of how it will go, but just based on what we see online, the trends. We keep up with like updates from Instagram and about social media platforms and stuff. And even when we look at similar competing brands or the content that we consume from brands, like it felt very aligned. So we got approval from the client and we tested it. We're on our second month now, and results have already shown from the first month that it was a good move. So I think there needs to be like that trust there, because especially in our industry, like organic social media is not an overnight play. Like you need to give it time. So I think we have really great relationships with our clients with trust there as well. But I think just like looking at the data from what we have, from the tools that we use, industry standards, what we're consuming to help make decisions. But at the end of the day, there's that phrase. It's like it's PR, not ER, is kind of how we really feel. And if a client was ever not happy with something, like we would always do our best to like rectify it. But um, yeah, I think especially in social media, you can't be afraid to make decisions and try new things because there's just so much out there, um, like competing work. You need to try and test things out. But yeah, I feel like a lot of my smaller decisions also now is like internal brainstorming and trusting the team as well to make those decisions with me.
Okay. Now, one final question before we start to wrap up. What is one boundary? You've talked about boundaries throughout this conversation. So, what is one boundary that you set immediately that made the business healthier, made you healthier, just gave you a little bit more space, maybe, but something that is like critical to you?
Um, Payments. I've chased a lot of invoices since I've started. Um, and I kind of put my foot down. If invoices aren't paid, work stops. That I feel like is probably the biggest one that comes to mind. And in this household, we don't work on Sundays unless it's mutually agreed, because that is our day to get outside and do things together. So I would say that's another recent one that just helps keep me a little bit sane. Um, but yeah, I think a big thing is if you feel in your gut that something feels off, just put your foot down and like you'll find another client. If you need to get rid of one that maybe feels a little sticky to you, you'll find an even better one.
Amazing. Now, last one before we wrap up. What's an invitation that you want every person tuning into this conversation to take with them? So that could be an action, that could be something to inspire them, whatever that is. What do you want them to take away from this conversation?
I think in our industry there's so much comparison. Um, I still do it online. There's so many people you can compare yourself to. It looks like they are doing better than you. Their content's better. Oh, how come I didn't think of that idea? Especially when I look at other social media agencies. But you really just need to do your best to stay in your lane. There's work out there for everyone, and there's always someone who's going to look up to you and what you're doing and think you're amazing. So I would say just like trust yourself and your capabilities, and you're going to grow along the way, and it'll all work out, and you'll be fine. It'll be amazing to take that leap and do whatever you want to do.
Amazing. Well, that's a wrap on today's conversation, and a beautiful conversation it was. Thank you, Emily, for sharing so openly, about the beginning, the pivots, the low points, and the becoming of who you are today. It's one thing to build a brand, it's another thing to build two that reflect who you are and how you want to move through the world. So, those listening, I hope this conversation reminded you that growth doesn't have to be chaotic to be powerful, that expansion can come from clarity, and that building something truly meaningful often starts with paying attention to what feels aligned with you. So if something in this episode resonated, I'd truly love to hear from you. And if you're in a season of expansion, wondering whether you're allowed to want more, consider this your permission to explore that thoughtfully.